April 16th, 1945. From a 12 the grey seas west of Okinawa. A low ceiling of cloud hangs like dirty wool over the radar picket line, and the air smells of salt, cordite, and hot paint. On the deck of a U.S. destroyer, sailors in dungarees and steel helmets move with the tight, practiced speed of men who have been doing this for weeks without sleep. Their eyes flick from the horizon to the clouds, to the black fingers of smoke that mark where another ship burned yesterday. The warning comes as a rising whine and a shout from the bridge. Incoming planes. The word is not even finished before the sky spits engines. A Japanese aircraft drops from the cloud base like a stone, wings flashing, sunlight catching the canopy for half a second. The forward 5-inch gun barks. Tracers stitch upward. The plane keeps coming. A sailor named Eddie grips the rail hard enough to whiten his knuckles. He does not have to be told what this is. Everyone on the picket line knows. The Japanese pilot is not looking for a way out. The pilot is looking for a ship shaped like an answer. The Kamikaze hits with a crack like a door slammed by God. Metal screams. The deck jumps. A hot gust rolls down the ship as if a furnace door has been thrown open. Men are knocked flat. Somewhere aft. Someone yells about fire. The ship's siren wails. Not a clean note, but a wounded animal sound. Eddie scrambles up, eyes stinging, and sees a patch of deck where the paint is gone, peeled back to bare steel and flame. He sees a boot without a leg in it. He does not stop to think. He runs because the ship is alive and burning and needs hands. Out on Okinawa itself. Across the water, the sound arrives a few seconds later as distant thunder. Marines dug into muddy coral hear it and look up without speaking, because they already know what it means. The island has become a grinding machine, and the sea offshore is its anvil. The men on land and the men afloat are tethered together by supply lines, by radio calls, by the same list of names that keeps shrinking. In a foxhole near a low ridge, a Marine corporal named Tom Red Malloy wipes rainwater and sweat from his brow with a sleeve that never dries. He wears a camouflaged helmet cover, a flak jacket that feels like a wet sandbag, and an M1 Garand that is always gritty no matter how much he cleans it. His squad has been awake most of the night, listening to Japanese mortars thump and the occasional scream of a wounded man being dragged back. Red hears the distant impact and watches the younger Marines in his hole react. One clenches his jaw. Another spits into the mud. No one says. That was a suicide plane. They do not need to. They have watched the sky for weeks. They have seen burning ships. Watched medics carry men with faces blistered raw. Listened to Navy corpsmen whisper about pilots who aimed for the biggest crowd of bodies. When the radio crackles later, the message is short and clipped. Another ship hit. Casualties. The voice is calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes from repeating horror until it becomes procedure. Red looks down the line of soggy positions and sees what that message does. It does not just make them sad. It tightens something in their chests. It puts an edge on every movement. By afternoon, the rain eases, and the squad is ordered forward through a broken orchard and knee-deep muck. The air is thick with the smell of crushed leaves, wet earth, and gunpowder. Red leads with a compass bearing and a hand signal, careful of booby traps. They find a shallow depression where Japanese soldiers had been. Recently, empty ammunition wrappers, a broken rice bowl, blood in the mud. Then they hear it. A cough, a groan. A Japanese soldier lies half-covered under fern fronds, his uniform soaked dark. His rifle is out of reach. His hands lift, palms open, fingers trembling. His eyes are wide and glassy. Pain and fear locked together. He tries to speak. It comes out as a rasp, in a different war, in a different week. Someone might have shouted for a corpsman. Someone might have stepped forward with a canteen and a bandage. might have seen a young man instead of an enemy. But this is Okinawa in April 1945, after the skies have been throwing men like bombs into ships. Red feels his own body react before his mind catches up. Anger, hot and fast. He thinks of the destroyer offshore, of the men torn apart on steel decks, of friends who died without even seeing the enemy's face. Behind him, one of his Marines hisses, Don't you trust it." Another mutters a word Red does not repeat, a word that has become easier to say with each kamikaze strike. The wounded Japanese soldier's hands remain up. He is trying to surrender, and in that moment, you can feel the hinge of the war creak. You can feel a choice forming, not in one man, but in a whole, tired, frightened, furious army that has watched the enemy turn his own body into a weapon. Red raises his hand to signal hold. His finger brushes the wet stock of his gerund. His breathing sounds loud inside his helmet. The squad waits, staring down at the prone figure, and the silence is broken only by dripping leaves and the far-off rumble of naval guns. Red steps forward one pace, boot sinking into mud with a soft suck. He does not want to be the first one close. That is how you die here. A fake surrender, a grenade tucked under a belly, a pistol hidden in a sleeve. They have heard stories since Saipan and Peleliu, stories that travel faster than bullets. And on Okinawa, those stories feel less like rumor and more like weather. "Hands up," Red says, louder than he needs to. "Hands up." The Japanese soldier raises them higher, elbows trembling. His face is streaked with rain and dirt. One side of his head is swollen and purple, and when he tries to shift, he winces like his ribs are broken. He looks young, maybe not even 20. That should matter. It does not. From behind, Red, PFC Harlan, a thin kid from Ohio who still has a boy's freckles, whispers. He's playing possum. They do it. They wait till you get close. Another Marine, older, with a scar across his cheek, says nothing. He just breathes through his mouth and watches the wounded man's hands like he is watching a fuse burn. Red's mind flashes, uninvited, to the radio message about the ship hit this morning. He imagines the sailor on the deck, boots skidding on blood and fuel oil. He imagines bodies folded under twisted steel. He has never been on a destroyer, but he has seen the wounded Navy men on the beach, skin raw from flash burns, eyes full of smoke and shock. Every kamikaze strike feels personal now, even to the men in the mud. A Navy plane screams overhead, engines deep and heavy. The Marines flinch automatically. Their bodies are trained to hate the sky. Red forces himself to think like a corporal, not like a man being slowly emptied. Prisoners mean intelligence. Prisoners mean maps, unit positions, tunnel entrances. Prisoners mean fewer Marines dead tomorrow. "Cover me," he orders. He moves forward with his bayonet out. Not to kill, but because the blade gives him distance. The wounded Japanese soldier watches the steel point approach and shudders. Red stops just outside arm's reach. "Roll him," Red says. Two Marines step in, quick and cautious, boots splashing. One hooks the bayonet tip under the Japanese soldier's belt and tugs, flipping him enough to check his underside without putting hands on him. Mud smears his uniform. Nothing falls out. No grenade, no pistol. Just a man, broken and wet, panting. Still, nobody lowers a weapon. Red kneels in the mud, careful to keep his weight back, and shouts for a corpsman. The call goes down the line, repeated by other voices. It takes time. Everything takes time here. The corpsman arrives at a crouch, helmet low, medical bag bumping his hip. He looks at the Japanese soldier for half a second, and then looks back at Red, searching his face for permission. The corpsman is Navy. He has seen what the sea has taken. His eyes are older than Red's. "Can you move him?" the corpsman asks. Red hesitates. He can feel the squad behind him tightening, the unspoken argument forming. If they take this man back, they will have to escort him, guard him, feed him. The thought of giving anything to the enemy, even water, makes some Marines feel sick. Not because they are cruel by nature, but because the war has been cruel to them so consistently that kindness feels like a trap. A mortar round thumps somewhere ahead, distant but close enough to rattle nerves. The Japanese soldier flinches and curls his shoulders, as if expecting the blast to land on him. His hands stay up. "Bind him," Red says. Harlan steps in with a length of cord, hands shaking. He ties the prisoner's wrists with quick, angry knots. His face is tight, jaw clenched so hard the muscles jump. As he works, he mutters, "After what they did to the ships, after what they keep doing, why are we doing this?" Nobody answers. The corpsman checks the prisoner anyway, pressing fingers against a neck for a pulse, then lifting the torn shirt to look at a wound. He does not speak softly. He does not offer comfort. He works like a mechanic under fire. As they lift the Japanese soldier, he groans and a wet sound escapes him. His head lolls, and for a moment Red sees the enemy not as a demon or a machine, but as another human body that breaks when hit. Then Red hears a distant roar from the sea again, a different kind, a chain of anti-aircraft guns firing in a frantic rhythm. The sound carries across the island, a harsh metallic tearing that turns every head upward. "Kikusui," someone says, a word that has been passing through the lines like a curse. Another wave, another sky full of men willing to die if they can take Americans with them. Red feels the change hit his squad like a cold gust. The moment of restraint snaps thin. Even the corpsman pauses, eyes lifted, as if he can see through the cloud deck to the diving planes. Harlan looks at the bound prisoner and then toward the sea, and the anger in him stops being theoretical. It becomes immediate, physical, and dangerous. Red knows it. He can sense it in the way the rifles are held, in the way breathing changes, in the way the men start to speak in short, sharp phrases. The prisoner is alive. The prisoner is captured. But the next kamikaze attack is already writing the next rule. Then the sound you fear most arrives. Not the distant guns, but the thin rising shriek of an engine dropping fast. Everyone ducks by instinct, somewhere toward the west, beyond the ridge and the ruined orchard. Something hits the sea or steel. A dull boom follows, then another. Smoke begins to smudge the clouds from below, black and thick like ink stirred into water. A minute later, a runner comes up the trail from battalion, boots slipping in mud. Helmet askew. Pickett got hit again. He pants. They want all prisoners moved back. No delays. Red nods once, but his eyes flick to Harlan. The kid's face has changed. He is staring out toward the sea with a look that is not just anger, but betrayal. Like the enemy has broken a rule that does not exist in war, but exists in a man's head anyway. As they start moving, the prisoner stumbles. The cord bites into his wrists. He tries to keep his hands up even though they are tied, elbows bent awkwardly. The scar-faced Marine shoves him forward with the muzzle of his rifle, not hard enough to knock him down, but not gentle either. The message is simple. Move, or you die here. They get perhaps 50 yards before the Japanese soldier collapses to a knee, coughing. The corpsman mutters a curse and starts to bend, but Harlan steps in front of him. "Leave him," Harlan says. Red hears it and stops. "No, he can't walk." Harlan snaps, voice cracking. "We're going to carry him while they drop planes on our ships, while our guys burn out there," the scar-faced Marine says, low and flat. He made his choice. The prisoner looks up at them, eyes wide, mouth open as if he wants to explain something. He cannot. There is no shared language for that kind of explanation. Red feels his own chest tighten. His brain is trying to hold two truths at once. The first is duty. Prisoner protocol. intelligence. The second is the way kamikaze attacks have twisted the whole battlefield. You do not fight a man who is trying to live the same way you fight a man who is trying to die on your deck. The corpsman tries again. He's wounded bad. We can drag him. Make a stretcher. Give me 2 men. Harlan's rifle is still aimed downrange, but his finger is closer to the trigger than it should be. His eyes do not leave the prisoner. You drag him. Doc. I'm not losing another buddy because we had to babysit him. Red steps close enough that Harlan can smell the mud and sweat on him. Look at me, Red says. Harlan does. And you can see the exhaustion behind his anger, the rawness of a boy who has watched too much fire. My cousin was on a ship at Leyte, Harlan says, voice low now. Wrote home about those planes. Guys jumping overboard, burning. He said when they pulled a Japanese pilot out of the water, some sailors wanted to shoot him right there. Said he was still reaching for a pistol. Said maybe he wasn't. But nobody wanted to find out. Red holds his gaze. We're not sailors, he says. We're Marines. We follow orders. Harlan's jaw works, chewing on the words. The scar-faced Marine looks away toward the smoke offshore, as if he does not want to see what happens next. The prisoner coughs again and slumps sideways, almost falling. The corpsman grabs him and keeps him from face planting into the mud. The bound man moans, and the sound is not defiant. It is small. Behind them, the sky cracks with another distant impact, and this time the shock hits the ridge in a faint tremor. Somewhere a Marine shouts about planes again, and the word kamikaze rides the air like a sickness. That is when Red understands the new reality with a cold clarity. The enemy has found a way to make every American decision heavier, uglier, more rushed. If you take a prisoner, you slow down. If you slow down, you die. If you die, your friends blame the prisoner, even if he never touched a weapon. The corpsman looks at Red, waiting for a command. Red looks down at the bound Japanese soldier, at the bruised face, at the shaking hands. He thinks of the destroyer decks, of the burned sailors on the beach. He thinks of his squad, of how fragile their restraint has become. Drag him. Red orders at last. Voice hard. 2 men. Now, the scar-faced Marine and another private grab the prisoner by the shoulders and belt and start hauling him backward along the trail, boots slipping. The prisoner's head bounces, and he groans. The corpsman walks beside them, one hand on the man's chest, trying to keep him breathing. Harlan follows with his rifle up, but his eyes are flat. The mercy has not vanished completely. It is still there, like a weak light in a storm, but it is flickering. And as they move back through the mud, Red hears other sounds across the ridge. Gunfire in quick bursts, a shout, then silence. Not every squad is making the same choice today. As they near a battered command post dug into the slope, they pass another Marine unit moving the opposite direction. Those men look worse. Faces hollowed, eyes ringed black. One of them carries a flamethrower tank like a coffin on his back. Another has a bandage around his head soaked through with brownish red. They glance at the bound Japanese soldier being dragged, and the looks on their faces are not curiosity. One spits. Why are you wasting time? Red does not answer. The other unit's sergeant, a thick-necked man with a cigarette stuck to his lip, walks closer and stares at the prisoner as if the Japanese soldier is a piece of trash caught in a ditch. You boys hear what happened on the line this morning, he says. It is not a question. Harlan's shoulders tense. Pickett got hit. The sergeant nods once. My brother was on one of those tin cans. Last week, they pulled him out with his hands burned to the bone. He ain't got fingers no more. The sergeant's eyes stay on the prisoner. No prisoners today, if you ask me. He says it like a weather forecast. And when he turns and walks away, his men follow, and none of them look back. Red feels the words cling to the air. No prisoners today. By the time Red's squad reaches the rear, the prisoner is barely conscious. The corpsman and 2 stretcher bearers take him, hauling him into a dugout where other wounded Japanese sit slumped against the dirt wall, wrists tied, eyes watching. A guard stands with a shotgun, face blank. The guard does not look like a man who expects anyone to live long. Red signs a quick note, hands shaking from fatigue, and turns his squad around. Orders are orders. They are going forward again. As they climb back toward the front, the smoke offshore thickens. The guns keep barking. The sky keeps threatening. Every step feels heavier because now they have seen what surrender looks like, and they have seen how little room there is left for it. Near the forward slope, they find the source of the gunfire Red heard earlier. It is quiet now. Too quiet. A shallow depression lies ahead, ringed with shell-torn grass. 2 Japanese bodies are sprawled in it, one face down, one on his back with his mouth open. Rain filling it. Both have their hands up, or had them up when they fell. Their rifles lie a few feet away. The bodies are fresh, not stiff yet, eyes still bright with the last trace of life. Red stops. His stomach tightens. A nearby Marine squad is crouched behind a log, weapons still aimed, breathing hard. Their leader, a corporal with a square jaw and a muddy mustache, looks at Red and shrugs. They came out waving. The other corporal says, "Right after we lost a man to a mortar. Right after the sky lit up again. My guys weren't taking chances." Red looks at the dead Japanese soldiers, at the way one of them has a small cloth pouch around his neck. Maybe a family charm. Maybe something else. He imagines them crawling out of a hole, hands raised, hearts pounding, hoping for mercy that the battlefield no longer has. He hears Harlan behind him, voice low, "Told you." Red does not respond. He cannot. If he argues, he's arguing against survival. If he accepts it, he is accepting something that will follow them home. They move on. The line presses forward, yard by yard. Japanese positions are buried in caves and spider holes, invisible until they erupt with gunfire. Every time a hole is found, the routine is the same. Grenade, burst of bar fire, shout into the darkness. Silence. Then a flamethrower steps up, the nozzle like a snakehead, and fire pours in, thick and roaring. Red watches the flames lick into a cave mouth and hears the sounds inside. Screams. Not one. Many. High-pitched and then cut off. The smell of burning flesh rolls out, sweet and awful, mixing with gasoline and wet earth. The Marines are not cheering. They are not laughing. They are working. Their faces are hard, eyes focused, as if emotion would slow the hands. After one cave is cleared, a figure stumbles out coughing, arms raised, uniform smoking, a Japanese soldier, burned, staggering forward like a man walking out of hell. He drops to his knees, hands up, head bowed. For half a second, there is a pause, the kind of pause where a man could choose. Then a Marine steps forward and fires once. The Japanese soldier collapses face first into the mud, smoke still rising from his back. Red feels something inside him flinch. He looks at the Marine who fired. The man's face is expressionless, eyes dead tired. He does not look proud. He looks like someone swatting a fly. The corpsman is not there now. No one is there to argue. Harlan exhales, a sharp breath like relief. Good, he says, and Red realizes with a cold twist that the kid has crossed a line without even noticing. Later, when the shelling eases, Red's squad huddles under ponchos. Rain ticks on helmets. Someone passes a canteen. Someone else unwraps a soggy ration. No one talks about the dead surrendered men, or the burned prisoner, or the shot Japanese soldier in the mud. But the silence itself is a confession. Because the Kamikaze attacks did not only destroy ships, they destroyed patience. They destroyed the thin belief that surrender meant safety. And on Okinawa, that loss spreads like a stain through tired hands holding rifles. Red sits with his back against the earth wall and feels the tremor in his hands. He hates it. He forces his fingers to still by gripping his garand until his knuckles ache. Around him, the squad moves in small, quiet motions, checking ammo, cleaning mud from bolts, passing cigarettes that taste like damp paper. Harlan is whispering with the scar-faced Marine. Red catches fragments, stories, half-truths, things that happened on other ridges, other nights, that may or may not be real, but feel real because they match the mood. They pulled a guy in, Harlan said he was surrendering, then he blew himself up, took 2 Marines with him, on Peleliu. They did it all the time. The scar-faced Marine answers, you get close, they grab you, knife you, grenade under the arm. Never trust it. Red knows that some of these stories are true. He also knows the details change every time they are repeated. The effect is the same. The effect is a rule being written without anyone signing it. No one says it out loud as a formal order. Not at first, but it becomes the way men act. A flare hisses up from somewhere down the line and paints the world in a ghostly green. For a second, Red sees the landscape clearly. Mud fields pocked with craters, strips of wire, the dark mouth of a cave on the opposite slope. Then the flare dies and darkness slams back down. In the lull that follows, Red hears movement ahead. A soft scrape, a cough. Someone whispering in Japanese. Up, Red murmurs, and the squad rises slightly. Rifles aimed, breath held. A figure appears at the edge of the crater field, hands raised high, elbows locked. The silhouette wavers, stepping carefully, like a man walking through a dream. A second figure follows, also with hands raised. For an instant, Red feels the old training kick in. Identify, challenge. Take prisoner if possible. The manual words float in his mind like something remembered from another lifetime. He calls out anyway, loud enough to carry, halt. Stay where you are. The figures stop. One speaks. A few words of English broken and thin. No shoot, no shoot. Prisoner. The voice makes Harlan's rifle tighten. Red hears the kid's breathing speed up. Red raises his hand, palm outward, trying to impose calm on a battlefield that has none. Stay. Put your hands on your head. Slow. The 2 Japanese soldiers comply, hands lowering to touch their helmets or hair. They kneel. They are doing what surrender is supposed to look like. Red starts to move forward. One careful step. Then he hears it again, distant but unmistakable. The heavy roar of naval anti-aircraft guns offshore. Even at night, even through cloud and rain, the fleet is still fighting for its life. And just like that, the surrender scene changes in the minds of every Marine watching. The enemy is still trying to kill them from the sky while asking for mercy on the ground. The scar-faced Marine mutters, it's a trick. It's always a trick. The Japanese soldiers remain kneeling, hands on heads, heads bowed. One of them is shaking, maybe from fear. Maybe from cold, maybe from knowing what might happen next. Red is about to order the squad to cover him while he searches them, when a burst of gunfire erupts from somewhere to his left. Not his squad. Another unit, perhaps 50 yards away, firing into the darkness. The kneeling Japanese soldiers flinch. One jerks sideways, then both collapse as bullets cut through them. The sound is short, final. For a second, Red cannot move. He did not give the order. He did not fire. But the result is the same. 2 would-be prisoners are now bodies in the mud. A voice from the left calls out, rough and angry. Keep your heads down. They're crawling in. Don't take chances. Red opens his mouth to shout back, to demand what the hell they were doing, but the words stick, because he knows the answer. They were doing what everyone is starting to do. Harlan exhales again. That sharp relief breath. "See," he whispers. "They saved us trouble." Red turns on him, eyes hard. "That's not how this works." Harlan stares back. Face lit by nothing, voice low and flat. "How's it supposed to work, Corporal? They crash planes into our ships. They crawl into our lines with grenades. You want me to trust them with my life? I'm tired of burying friends." Red has no clean reply. There is no sentence that makes exhaustion go away. There is no speech that fills the empty bunks on the ships offshore. The next morning, the rain stops for an hour, and the sun shows itself like an insult. The ridge glitters wet. The stink of rot rises. Red's unit advances again, clearing caves and trenches. Each time they approach a hole. Someone shouts for anyone inside to come out. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes a grenade rolls out. Sometimes a man comes out with hands up. The pattern is changing. You can feel it in how quickly fingers squeeze triggers, how rarely anyone steps forward to take a surrendering man by the collar. How many Japanese bodies lie with their hands still raised. By midday, Red sees a lieutenant from another company walk down the line and speak in short, quiet sentences to squad leaders. Not an official announcement, not a written order, but the message moves through the mud like electricity. "Be careful with surrenders," the lieutenant says. "Too many fakes. If you can't secure them, don't. Keep moving. Don't risk your men." In plain terms, it means the same thing the sergeant said earlier. No prisoners today, unless it's easy. And in a war where nothing is easy, the rumor has become policy. In the rubble of a stone wall, they find a Japanese soldier hiding in a crawl space, rifle clutched to his chest. He looks up like a man caught in a snare. His eyes flick from one Marine to the next, calculating in a panic. He could fire. He could lunge. He could pull a grenade and take one of them with him. Instead, he drops the rifle. It falls with a soft thud into dust. He raises his hands and begins to speak. Fast and pleading, words none of them understand. The tone is clear enough. "Surrender, please." Harlan's rifle lifts. The scar-faced Marine's jaw tightens. Red feels his own body go rigid. Not from hatred now, but from the weight of what comes next. He can almost see the invisible scoreboard in every man's head. Every kamikaze strike, every burned sailor, every cave that spat out a grenade after a hand went in to help. Red steps forward. Hand out, palm down. "Easy," he says. It is to his men as much as the enemy. The Japanese soldier keeps his hands up. He is trembling violently. He might be sick. He might be starving. His cheeks are hollow, lips cracked. His eyes are too big in his face. Red glances toward the rear. No stretcher teams nearby. No spare men for escort. The platoon is already thin. Every Marine is doing the work of two. He thinks of the lieutenant's words. If you can't secure them, don't. Keep moving. Don't risk your men. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like survival. It also sounds like a door closing. Red points his rifle at the ground. Not at the soldier. "Get up," he orders, making a motion with his hand. "You walk. You go back. This way." The Japanese soldier hesitates, then rises unsteadily. Red gestures again. The man takes a step toward them. Maybe misunderstanding, maybe thinking he must come closer to be searched. Harlan stiffens. The scar-faced Marine shifts his stance. "Stop." Red snaps. He holds up his hand like a wall. "Stay there." The Japanese soldier freezes, confused and terrified, hands still high. From the left, a single shot cracks. Not from Red's squad. Another unit, maybe in the next lane of advance. The bullet whips through the air with a sound like a snapped twig and smacks into the rubble near the Japanese soldier's feet. The soldier flinches and turns his head toward the sound. For half a second, his hands wobble. His right arm dips. Harlan fires. The Japanese soldier jerks as the bullet hits him in the chest. His hands fall. He collapses backward into dust and broken stone, eyes wide, mouth opening in a sound that does not fully form. Blood darkens his uniform quickly, soaking into the grit. Red's heart slams once, hard, and he feels a hot wave of anger rise. Not at the enemy, but at his own line, at the whole mechanism that has turned men into reflexes. "Harlan," Red says, voice low and sharp. Harlan keeps his rifle shouldered for a moment, breathing hard. Then he lowers it. His face is pale, eyes shining with something between fear and certainty. "He moved," Harlan says. He moved his hands. He flinched. Red answers. Harlan shakes his head once. "You said yourself. They fake it. They got grenades. They got knives. I'm not dying because I wanted to be nice." The scar-faced Marine does not speak. He simply watches the dead Japanese soldier for a second, then looks away toward the next ruin, the next hole, the next threat. The squad moves on because that is what squads do. They keep moving until they can't. They keep moving because stopping means thinking. Days blend together. More attacks offshore, more smoke, more men lost. Red hears about sailors who drag Japanese pilots out of the water and then turn away while someone else does what they cannot say aloud. He hears about Marines who shoot surrendering men at cave mouths because too many caves have exploded when someone tried to take prisoners. He hears about officers who look the other way because they cannot afford a court-martial when they can barely afford replacements. And yet, somewhere in the rear, Japanese prisoners still exist. Red sees them once, lined up under guard, thin figures with bandaged heads and blank stares, drinking water from canteens like men who cannot believe they are still alive. They are proof that it can still happen, that mercy is not fully dead. But it is rare now. It has become a risk calculation, not a moral reflex. On June 22nd, 1945, the island is declared secured. The announcement does not feel like victory to Red. It feels like the end of a long drowning. When the shooting finally slows, when the fleet steams away from the picket line and the skies stop vomiting planes, the hardened behavior does not instantly melt. It lingers in the hands, in the way men look at shadows, in the way they wake up sweating, hearing engines diving. Weeks later, Red is on a transport, looking back at Okinawa shrinking into a dark smudge on the horizon. The sea is calm in a way that feels wrong. Sailors smoke on deck, silent. Marines sit with their backs against bulkheads, eyes half closed, faces like stone. Harlan sits nearby, cleaning his rifle again, even though it is already clean. He scrapes at invisible grime with obsessive care. Red watches him and thinks about the Japanese soldier in the village ruin, hands raised, trembling. Red wants to say something to Harlan, something that puts the line back where it belongs, something that makes the war clean again. He cannot find the words, because what the Kamikaze attacks did was not only physical destruction, they were psychological demolition. They made the enemy's willingness to die feel like a weapon aimed at every act of restraint. They taught tired men to see surrender as a trick. They pushed fear and anger into the gaps where discipline should live. And when those gaps open, men fill them with whatever keeps them alive. Red stares at the horizon until the island disappears. The wind off the water is cool, and for the first time in months he can smell something other than smoke. It should be relief. Instead, what he feels is a quiet dread. Because he knows the war has not just taken friends, it has taken parts of them that will not be replaced. The shooting will stop. The medals will be pinned. The newspapers will print victory headlines. But the memory of raised hands in the mud and the sound of a rifle cracking anyway will follow them into whatever peace comes next.